Chapter 1: The Scary World. In 2005, on February 19, a monster with a height of more than 100 meters and resembling a violent ape appeared in the suburbs of Dongdu and rushed into the city to wreak havoc. After causing hundreds of thousands of casualties, they were besieged and killed by 3 fleets from the federal base. During the battle, the garrison consumed 1 million equivalent nuclear bomb, 150 cruise missiles, and destroyed 15 fighter planes. In 2005, on the morning of June 1, a 3-kilometer-long monster resembling a whale appeared in the sky above Hanqing, causing great panic again. Fortunately, this giant beast is not very aggressive, and it only existed for 15 minutes without causing too many casualties. During this period, the behemoth disappeared after ignoring various federal missile bombings. On August 3, 2005, a gigantic beast with a length of 1 kilometer, which looked like a giant python in mythology, appeared in the city of Lair in the Aohiti Sea and wreaked havoc. The behemoth incident caused millions of casualties, and finally ended with the behemoth leaving with minor injuries. During this incident, the army consumed 3 million yield nuclear bombs, 320 other missiles, 5 warships, and countless ammunition. So far, a new era has opened. In 2055 evening. In the room, a 16-year-old boy was sitting in front of the computer with a solemn expression, carefully looking at the information about the mythological era found on the internet. After a long time, Chen Chu rubbed his eyebrows with a headache. What kind of dangerous world is this? After traveling to this world for half a day, Chen Chu discovered that the history, technology, and civilization of this world are very similar to the original world by sorting out the memory of the original owner. But everything turned a corner decades ago when some giant beasts that looked like mythical creatures descended. With the appearance and disappearance of these behemoths, the whole world has changed, and those folk practitioners who disappeared after the appearance of guns rose again. After decades of development, some powerful cultivators can overcome missile bombing, sink an aircraft carrier with a human body, and tear apart giant beasts. They are powerful and terrifying. Under such circumstances, when various federal countries are researching more advanced technologies and weapons, the wind of cultivation is also prevalent. Of course, these were not enough to cause Chen Chu a headache. Time travel, although it was the first time he had no experience, but with an adult mindset, he quickly accepted it, even if the world was a little chaotic. But the problem is. Thinking of this, Chen Chu turned his head to look at the glass water tank beside him. To be precise, Chen Chu was looking at the white salamander lying on the stone inside, 10 centimeters long, with 4 limbs and 6 pink horns. With the development of the economy and the improvement of living standards, the world's pet market has become more and more prosperous, and the varieties are even more varied. Needless to say, cats and dogs, raising lizards and pythons has become the norm, and some people even like to raise ants and insects. For example, the original owner has different preferences from others. He raised a hexagonal newt that is half water and half land, and also got a well-arranged crystal glass cabinet. Of course, these are not the point. The point is that at this moment, Chen Chu had 2 bodily sensations in his mind. One is sitting on a chair as a human being, and the other is the strange feeling of lying on all fours and breathing with gills. It's just that compared to the control of the human body, that young body made him feel a little uncoordinated, and he dared not move while lying on the rock. Just like the original single-core processor, suddenly it has to deal with dual-core processors, and the computing power can't keep up. And suddenly there was an extra body. Chen Chu was still a little dazed when he was in a daze. He didn't know what caused this situation. Why did he travel through? And if the 6-horned dragon dies, will it affect him? Besides, what is the use of this body smaller than a palm? It's not enough to eat 2 bites. For a while, Chen Chu sat on the chair and thought a lot, but it was useless. At this time, a thick-headed young man pushed open the door and shouted to Chen Chu in front of the computer, "Brother, it's time to eat." "Oh, here we come." Chen Chu stood up. His current identity is a high school freshman, 16 years old, with a 13-year-old younger brother, and his mother is a grassroots manager of a metal smelting company. As for the father, it is said that he died of illness very early. He passed away normally, without any accidents. Therefore, there will not be a bloody plot where Chen Chu's father disappeared unexpectedly when he was a child, and after he and his younger brother accidentally learned the truth, they would get angry and take revenge. Of course, there is no possibility that his father actually came from a wealthy family, left him when he was young for some special reasons, and came back more than 10 years later to meet him. When Chen Chu came to the downstairs restaurant, his younger brother Chen, who had already served the table, and there was a beautiful woman in her 40s with a gentle temperament sitting beside her. Looking at Chen Chu, who was sitting down, Zhongscalen asked with concern. Ah Chu, how are you feeling now? Can you go to school tomorrow? It's all right. Zhongscalen breathed a sigh of relief, nodded, and said in a gentle voice, it's fine, you really scared us this time. Unlike his younger brother who is physically strong and loves sports, Chen Chu has been weak and sick since he was a child. If you get a little cold, you will have a fever and catch a cold. If it is more serious, it will be nephritis or pneumonia. I suddenly had a fever in the middle of the night last night. When I was found in the morning, the fever had reached 43 degrees. I had to go to the clinic for an infusion all morning to get it down. At that time, both Zhongscalen and Chen Chu were taken aback, including the doctors, who almost thought that he would not be able to make it through, so they rushed him to a big hospital. But the fact is that they really didn't make it through, but no one knew about it except Chen Chu himself. Zhongscalen cared, after dinner, remember to take medicine. Okay, I know. Also, if you feel uncomfortable anywhere, we'll go to the hospital. Yeah. In order to avoid accidents, Chen Chu was relatively silent at the dinner table. However, the original owner's personality was dull and introverted, so neither Zhongscalen nor Chen Chu noticed anything abnormal. After eating, Chen Chu, who was still sick, was rushed back to her room. Chen Chu went out to play with friends with his basketball in his arms, and Zhongscalen cleaned up in the kitchen alone. When he returned upstairs, Chen Chu was still holding a plate of thawed shrimp in his hand. This was a hexagonal salamander. No, it should be said to be his food. In the fish tank, a 10-centimeter-long white salamander raised its head, and its small black sesame-like eyes looked at the huge clip slowly falling from Tianwei. The salamander's eyesight is poor, and because of its size, from its perspective, the arm that goes over the glass tank, the clip more than 20 centimeters long, is very huge. The prawn meat sandwiched on it is half the size of its head. Chen Chu consciously controlled the salamander to open its mouth and swallowed the shrimp meat in one gulp. This feeling of feeding himself made him a little unaccustomed, so he couldn't help but subconsciously licked his tongue. It seems to taste good. The salamander's little white head blinked. Despite its small size, axolotls have a large appetite. Usually, they have to eat food equivalent to 1/3 of their bodies before they stop eating. But this time, Chen Chu kept picking up the torn shrimp meat one by one, and the salamanders who were being fed kept opening their mouths to devour them, like a black hole that couldn't be fed enough, it could only go in and out. In just a short while, the hexagonal salamander ate food equivalent to its own volume. According to Chen Chu's perception, after the food entered the body of it, it fell down the throat and into the stomach, and disappeared under the terrifying digestive power in the blink of an eye. At the same time, as a large amount of food was swallowed, a warm feeling permeated the salamander's whole body, centered on the salamander's stomach, followed by itching. Itching all over. The itchy Chen Chu felt a little uncomfortable, and couldn't help but open his mouth. Gah! The sound of a salamander is like a child's cry, but it is so small that it cannot be detected. Immediately after, under Chen Chu's surprised gaze, the size of the hexagonal salamander grew at a speed visible to the naked eye, and its length also increased to 11 centimeters. 1 centimeter, that is, 1 centimeter, does not seem like much, but this increase is completed in the blink of an eye. With this digestion ability and growth speed, not only did Chen Chu not feel afraid, but his eyes lit up. If it's just an ordinary hexagonal salamander, the species limit is about 30 centimeters, so even if Chen Chu can control it freely, so what? What is the use? This is a terrifying world where nuclear bombs explode everywhere and strong practitioners can sink aircraft carriers. But now, he seems to see a light called the future. Suppressing the excitement in his heart, Chen Chu went to the refrigerator downstairs to take out some shrimp meat to defrost, and continued to feed the salamanders when he felt that the salamanders were still edible. Soon, the shrimp meat, which is twice the size of the salamander, bottomed out again. Only then did the salamander feel a slight sense of fullness. At the same time, the feeling of growth reappeared, and a trace of warmth spread throughout the body of the salamander clone. Accompanied by the itching sensation, the body grew at a speed visible to the naked eye. Then a row of transparent words appeared in front of Chen Chu's eyes. Chapter 2, Talent. Your salamander avatar gains a little evolution point by eating a lot of food. The property page is being generated. The generation is complete. Along with the appearance of 2 lines of transparent text, Chen Chu was stunned, and a transparent page frame appeared in front of his eyes. Physique, 7. Ordinary person, 10. Strength, 7. Dexterity, 6. Spirit, 10. Talent, soul split. Separate body, hexagonal salamander, common amphibious creature, adult body length 30 centimeters, combat power 0. Grade, none. Talent, no. Evolution value, 1/10 evolution can be activated when the evolution value is full. Property page. Chen Chu let out a breath slowly, suppressing the excitement in his heart. As a semi-nerd who likes to read novels, watch anime, and play games in his spare time, Chen Chu naturally accepted this unexpected development. And he probably knew why the hexagonal salamander became his clone. It should be related to his talent of soul splitting. Scanning all the statistics, Chen Chu was not surprised that except for his spirit, other attributes were lower than normal people's. His body is really weak. Then his eyes fell on the data of the avatar below, and the corners of his mouth rose slightly. It only exists in the property page of fantasy, and as long as it eats, it can accumulate evolved avatars. In this case, he feels that he can do well in this life casually. Cough. Calm down, calm down. After the excitement, Chen Chu gradually calmed down. Next, he studied the property page for a while, but unfortunately, he still had nothing to gain. At 8 o'clock in the morning, on the sidewalk of the street, Chen Chu was wearing a white short-sleeved shirt, black trousers and leather shoes, and was walking on the way to school against the rising sun. Here I have to say that the style of school uniforms in this world is not bad. After wearing this, Chen Chu looked a little more energetic. At this time, Chen Hu on the side said enviously, "Brother, you look so handsome in this school uniform." Because of being weak since he was a child, Chen Chu's face has always been pale and clean, and his facial features are very delicate, which is better looking than many girls. Although his stature of 1.7 meters is not very tall and he is a little thin, but when he walks, his posture is straight and very temperamental, giving people the feeling of a sickly and beautiful boy. It's okay. Chen Chu was quite satisfied with this and was glad that he was not ugly and short after time travel. Compared to his elder brother, his younger brother, Chen Hu, was a bit rougher. He was only 1.75 meters tall at the age of 13, with a strong body and a thick head. Not only did Chen Chu start school today, but so did Chen Hu. They had a junior high school and a high school. And the school is in one direction. Chen Hu's school is closer, about 20 minutes walk, and Chen Chu's high school is about half an hour's walk, separated by a district. Brother, I heard that after entering high school, you can learn real martial arts, and if you have good talent, you can get the national key training. Chen Chu shook his head. It is not easy to meet the national training standards. Chen Hu waved his fist. Brother, I believe in you, you can do it. Do you think my body like a sick child will be very talented in cultivation? Compared to Chen Hu's blind trust, Chen Chu has no confidence. After the beginning of the new era, after more than 10 years of chaos, countries all over the world united to form the current United States of America, which has maintained stability for decades. The city I am currently in is called Wujiang City. Most of the people living there are Han Chinese, and 12 years of compulsory education is implemented. In high school, with the basic physical development, everyone will start to learn the basic real martial arts formulated by the Federation. At this point, most people's lives begin to diverge. If one has the talent for cultivation and is willing to develop into martial arts, he will enter the martial arts class in the second semester of high school, focusing on martial arts and studying liberal arts at the same time. Others who have practiced basic real martial arts for a semester, but have no talent, can focus on liberal arts and science, and enter the university with excellent grades. Of course, whether it is practicing martial arts or studying, there are only a small number of talented people, and most of them will enter society after finishing high school. And since it is to practice martial arts, a good body is naturally the foundation. That's why Chen Chu has no hope for his cultivation talent. However, he was not discouraged. With the attribute page and the avatar that could evolve, he still had the possibility to stand at the top. On the way, Chen Chu and Chen Hu separated and walked along the sidewalk for more than 10 minutes before they came to the gate of the school named Nanshan Wugao. Today is the first day of school, and the streets are almost full of cars delivering children. Because of the resurrection of spiritual energy, although the technological civilization of this world is also developing, the progress is relatively slow, and it is only a little more advanced than the Earth as a whole. Therefore, although these luxury cars have smoother lines, they still burn oil and electricity, and have not yet developed to the point of suspension. Following the flow of people, Chen Chu walked into the school unhurriedly, and followed the names posted on the notice board all the way to the third classroom on the second floor of the Senior 1 teaching building. At this time, there were already some students inside, and it seemed a little noisy. Chen Chu glanced at it, and then randomly found a seat in the back row by the window and sat down, sighing in her heart. I didn't expect that I would go to high school again after time travel. Soon, the class was full of people, about 40 people, and the ratio of male to female was about 1 to 1. At 9 o'clock, a woman in her 30s walked into the classroom, dressed in formal attire with a serious face. After entering, she wrote the word Chen Chu on the blackboard. Chen Chu stood on the podium, looked down and said solemnly, "My name is Chen Chu, and I will be your head teacher from today on." Then she pointed directly at the 2 students in the front row. "You, interim monitor. You, temporarily acting as the martial arts committee member, are you okay?" The 2 students named by her were a man and a woman, and the boy was even more excited. He stood up and said, "Teacher, I'm fine." The girl also nodded, "I have no problem." "Very well, later, the 2 of you find a few people and go to the textbook room to bring and distribute the study materials." "Is teacher." Then she looked at all the students and said indifferently, "Today is the first day of school, nothing to do. The main thing is to let you recognize the class you are in. After receiving the study materials, you can move freely, you can go back, and you can also visit the school. Classes will start tomorrow. Also, your current seat is the seat you will be seated in the future, and there will be no change unless there are special circumstances. There are corresponding keys in the drawer under the table, which can lock the learning materials inside, so there is no need to memorize them every day. Okay, that's it." After finishing speaking, the class teacher named Chen Chu turned around and left, acting vigorously and cleanly, leaving those students to continue to be confused. Including Chen Chu, he didn't expect to meet such a bad head teacher on the first day of high school in this world. Or is this the education style in this world? Randomly pointing out that 2 people are the squad leader and some kind of martial arts committee member, and turning around and leaving after just a few words, it's like staying a little longer will waste her life. Under normal circumstances, shouldn't each student introduce himself on stage, so that everyone can get acquainted with each other and integrate into the class atmosphere and the new environment early? Chapter 3. Relationship. Watching the head teacher walk out of the classroom, other students subconsciously looked at the 2 class monitors in the front row. There was no way, because they were the class monitors and martial arts committee members. Seeing this, the 2 students were not afraid of the stage. They walked to the stage, and many male students' eyes lit up immediately, because this class monitor was very beautiful. "My name is Lin Shui. As the class monitor of Class 3, I hope everyone can actively cooperate with class tasks in the future." After saying that, the girl named Lin Shui swept her eyes over everyone. There was an inexplicable strong aura on her body, which made many students dare not look at each other. At this time, another boy smiled and said, "Hello, classmates, my name is Yinrui, and I will be in the same class with everyone in the next semester. I hope to help each other and work hard together to spend a wonderful first semester. Now we are going to get study materials, and we need some classmates to help us. I wonder which classmates are willing to help. Me. I will go too. And I." After Yinrui finished speaking, many male classmates stood up actively, looking very enthusiastic. High school is the best age. Although the girl named Lin Shui is a little cold and arrogant, she has a strong aura, but who makes her beautiful? Soon, 6 boys and 1 girl were willing to contribute to the class and followed the 2 out of the classroom. At this time, the boy in the front row of Chen Chu said, "They decided the class monitor and martial arts committee member without even asking their names. I'm sure there must be some pi transactions." Pi transactions, just for a class monitor. Chen Chu was a little surprised. The boy in front turned around and said meaningfully, "Classmate, you underestimate the class cadres in high school. These 2 positions are not that simple." After that, the boy introduced himself with a smile. "Hi, brother, my name is Xia Yui. I studied in experimental number 3 middle school and junior high school. How about you?" Chen Chu said simply, "Chen Chu, I was promoted from Lingshan number 1 middle school." Lingshan number 1 middle school, the scenery there is nice, I went there once. Chen Chu looked at the honest-looking boy and asked curiously, "Classmate Xia, is there any difference between the class cadres in high school and junior high school?" "The difference is huge," Xia Yui said with some envy. "According to national regulations, everyone can learn Zhenwu after high school, but you have to know that there are dozens of students in each class and 1 or 2,000 in a grade. In this case, Zhenwu teacher certainly cannot pay attention to all students as there are dozens or even hundreds of students in class together. At this time, the status of class monitors and others is highlighted. As class cadres, they can ask the teacher for advice individually as long as they find a reason. When the teacher gives them some tips on cultivation techniques and personal experience, it will be enough for them to slowly leave other students behind. And the better the grades, the more attention they will receive from the school or even the government, and there will be resources tilted. At that time, one step faster, one step faster. I see. After saying this, Chen Chu understood why he said there was an inside story before. It is indeed a bit strange that the head teacher directly appointed such an important position without even asking the names of the two students. At this time, Xia Yui whispered, "More than that, I heard that high school martial arts class cadres are rewarded with contribution points every month." Contribution points, what are they? Chen Chu was a little confused, he really didn't know these. Xia Yui shook his head, "It is an important resource for practicing martial arts. I also heard from my brother that I would like to earn a little money after high school." Xia Yui is obviously the kind of person who is easy to get along with. After chatting with Chen Chu, he turned back to talk to the girl in front of him and quickly became friends with the students around him. Not only him, but other students in the classroom were also similar. They all felt novel about the new environment on the first day of school. Only a few people were similar to Chen Chu, sitting there silently looking around. Soon, Lin Shui and Yin Rui came back with big and small bags. After distributing textbooks, many students left the classroom and walked together in groups of 3 or 2 to get familiar with the campus, especially the class monitor Lin Shui and the committee member Yin Rui, who were surrounded by more people. Chen Chu chose to go home. He was going to buy food for the 6-cornered salamander. "Boss, how much is this shrimp?" Chen Chu stood in front of the seafood stall at the farmer's market. 21 pounds. Chen Chu paused slightly and pointed at the dead fish in the basket on the ground. "What about this kind of small white stripes?" 5 yuan. "Give me 10 pounds of small white stripes." Zhang Scalen is the only one in the family who has an income, and the pressure of life is high, so Chen Chu can save as much as he can. After scanning the code to pay, Chen Chu walked out of the market with 10 pounds of fish and some vegetables for lunch and dinner. Zhang Scalen went to work very early every day and came back very late at night, so most of the time Chen Chu was responsible for making dinner and Chen Hu was responsible for washing dishes. When I got home, it was just past 10 in the morning, and Chen Hu hadn't come back yet. Chen Chu threw most of the small fish into the refrigerator to freeze and removed the internal organs of the remaining 1 pound of small fish, washed it, and cut it into small pieces. After all, it was for himself to eat, so he had to make it a little cleaner. Since no food had been eaten since morning, the salamander clone had been hungry for a long time. Chen Chu felt the strong hunger from the clone on the way back. When Chen Chu brought a plate of fish upstairs, the white salamander on the table rolled its small black sesame eyes, looking a little silly and cute. Chen Chu's consciousness moved and his attention fell on the salamander. Suddenly, the lazily lying salamander stood up, crawled with its tiny limbs, and came to the plate and started eating. I don't know if it's because of insufficient mental power or because they share the same consciousness, but when Chen Chu focuses on himself, the salamander clone will fall into a weak consciousness state. Although it won't shut down, the reaction will become very slow. Similarly, when his consciousness controls the clone, the human body reacts similarly, and it is impossible to control 2 bodies at the same time. For this problem, he doesn't know how to solve it at present, and can only see if he can train the ability to do 2 things at the same time in the future. While Chen Chu was thinking, the hexagonal salamander controlled by his consciousness ate a piece of fish meat. As soon as the fish meat entered the stomach, it was dissolved and digested at an astonishing speed, turning into a stream of weak warm currents that spread throughout the body and became nutrients for growth. Then the body of the salamander with 6 corners and a body of snow white was seen to grow at a speed visible to the naked eye. The digestive ability of the salamander clone is terrible. Every time it eats food equivalent to its volume, it will grow 1 centimeter and then do it again. It will enter a buffer period only after accumulating 1 evolution point. According to Chen Chu's observation, the clone can grow 4 centimeters a day, gain 2 evolution points, consume 2 kilograms of food, and reach the first evolution requirement in just a few days. I wonder what the hexagonal salamander will evolve into, a giant hexagonal salamander? Or evolve into a hexagonal dragon? Chapter 4, True Martial Arts. Before going out in the morning, Chen Chu prepared the morning food for the newt avatar. It's just that before leaving, Zhang Scalen, who hadn't gone to work today, stopped them. At the entrance of the old small courtyard, Zhang Scalen gently helped Chen Chu straighten his collar, looking at the eldest son who was already as tall as her. His eyes were full of emotion. "Mom, is there anything else?" Chen Hu beside him was a little puzzled. Looking at the 2 sons, Zhang Scalen smiled slightly. "It's nothing. I just want to tell you and your brother that school just started. Don't put too much pressure on it." Chen Hu didn't care and said, It's just junior high school, I can keep up with whatever I learn. Zhang Scalan smiled wryly as she looked at her second son, who had a thick head and a thick brain. Of course, she was not worried about her second son. What she is worried about is the boss, who can practice real martial arts after high school, but not everyone has the talent for cultivation. The eldest son has been weak and sick since he was a child, and at first glance he is not a person who can practice martial arts, and the greater the hope, the greater the disappointment. In case of being hit, Chen Chu said calmly, "Mom, don't worry, I know it well." Okay. Zhang Scalan opened her mouth, but finally said nothing. Saying goodbye to Zhang Scalan, the two brothers Chen and Chu walked on the way to school. Along the way, you can see many students wearing school uniforms also going to school, some alone, some playing together, and some riding bicycles. Commonwealth schools are divided into districts, and all students go to the nearest school, so many of them wear the same school uniform as Chen Chu or Chen Hu. In the classroom, class monitor Lin Shui and committee member Yi Rui arrived early, and many students surrounded them chatting, which was very lively. As soon as Chen Chu sat down, Xia Yui in front of him came over and said mysteriously, "Ah Chu, I already know why Yi Rui and the others became class leaders." "Ah Chu, are we so familiar yet?" Although complaining from the bottom of his heart, Chen Chu still asked curiously in cooperation. "Why?" It is said that the class monitor's parents are strong practitioners. The class teacher must want to curry favor with her family. Well, both parents are strong practitioners. Chen Chu asked, "What about the other one?" Xia Yui said in a low voice, "Yi Rui is not simple either. His family is rich and powerful in the city. Maybe he sent a red envelope to the head teacher before school started to say hello. I see, there are classes no matter what world it is. Don't talk about it everywhere." Finally, Chen Chu reminded Xia Yui. Regardless of whether this matter is true or not, as a student, try not to talk about the head teacher behind his back, otherwise it will be bad for the other party to hear. I know, I only told you about this, and I didn't tell anyone else. Xia Yui blinked as if I trusted you very much. At this time, a math teacher came in, and the class fell silent. The high school cultural class in this world is not difficult. After listening to a class, Chen Chu went in a daze. Of course, he was actually distracted from controlling the newt clone at home to eat. The 3 classes in the morning passed quickly, and it was noon in a blink of an eye. After lunch, take a short rest. All the first-year high school students came to the back of the school in a mighty way. There are more than a dozen high-rise buildings distinguished by ABCD letters surrounding the practice area formed by the central gymnasium. According to the class, Chen Chu and others came to the practice classroom on the 5th floor of Building B. In the 500-square-meter practice classroom, a middle-aged man in his 30s with a stern expression stood on a high platform. Behind him was a large screen 5 meters high and 8 meters wide. After all the students stood up, the middle-aged man slowly opened his eyes. His sharp gaze made everyone's eyes hurt. Hiss! Many students were startled in their hearts. They didn't expect this teacher to have such terrifying eyes. The middle-aged man said solemnly, "My name is Pang Long, and I am your Zhenwu teacher in the 1st semester. Next, I will first explain to you what is true martial arts." As he spoke, Pang Long pointed to a pile of cement boards that had been prepared earlier under the stage. "Do you see those cement boards? Here are a few boys to lift them up." After a short pause, Yi Rui, the martial arts committee member, took the lead and walked out, followed by some boys, including Xia Yui. There are 6 cement boards, each of which is about 1 meter long and wide, and 10 centimeters thick, and is estimated to weigh more than 100 kilograms. Therefore, even if they are in a team of 2, it is very difficult for the little fat man to lift them. At the same time, it shows that their strength seems to be a bit strong. According to Pang Long's request, Yi Rui and the others put the cement slabs upright on the table, forming a row of cement walls, not knowing what to do. Standing on the stage with his hands behind his back, Pang Long looked at the childish faces below and said indifferently, "What is real martial arts? True martial arts is to refine fakes into real ones." A few decades ago, martial arts and cultivation were just folklore, and they were jokingly referred to as ostentatious without any actual combat effect. Even if you practice hard for 20 years, you can't stop a bullet. But everything began to change in the new era. Some pioneers discovered that they could make falsehoods into reality, turning all the legends of the past into reality. And this is Zhenwu. Boom 1. As soon as he finished speaking, a terrifying aura erupted from Pang Long's body, like a sleeping monster suddenly waking up. The powerful aura was as real as it was, and the surrounding air made a dull explosion, forming circles of twisted air waves and strong winds around him, blowing his clothes and making them explode. On the high platform, Pang Long's figure flickered, and he appeared in front of the table across 3 meters as if he had teleported. His right hand, which gathered terrifying power, clenched his fist and slammed it out. Because the strength was so strong, circles of transparent shock waves even appeared in front of his fist. Boom! Under the shocking eyes of most people, the 6 piles of cement exploded with a bang. The smoke and dust filled the air, and the momentum was frightening. Under the powerful force, countless pieces of gravel and mud scattered like cannonballs, crackling and smashing on the wall more than 10 meters away and smashed into small holes when they hit. Fortunately, the direction of Pang Long's fist was to face downwards, otherwise, these gravels, which were as powerful as bullets, would fall on the students, enough to smash them into sieves. Grunt. Even Chen Chu swallowed this time. Although the information found on the internet said that a powerful practitioner can sink an aircraft carrier and tear apart a giant beast, but after all, it is just words, far from the shock of seeing it with one's own eyes. Moreover, the 6 cement slabs were nearly 1 meter thick, and even an anti-material sniper rifle might not be able to penetrate them, but at this time they were directly blasted by a punch. This kind of powerful force immediately made Chen Chu's blood boil, and he was full of expectations for the next training. On the podium, Pang Long stood with his hands behind his back, looking at the excited and flushed faces below. He was very satisfied with the effect of his punch. After the smoke cleared, Pang Long said slowly, "Next, start the first step of cultivation. Everyone, wait a moment and meditate according to the pattern that appears on the screen behind me, and practice for an hour. After that, it will be the training class of the body casting art. By the way, who is the monitor?" "Me." Lin Shui in the front row took a step forward. "Are you full of energy?" "Not bad." Glancing at the girl, Pang Long nodded and said, "Later, you explain to them what foundation building is, and come to me when someone meets the standards for building a foundation. The martial arts committee member of this class, you are responsible for maintaining the order of the future training classes." "Yes, teacher," Yi Rui replied loudly. Immediately, Pang Long turned around and left just as neat and tidy as Chen Chi, the head teacher on the first day, leaving behind most of the students with bewildered faces. That's the end. Why do these teachers look so busy? Chapter 5, Genius. After the teacher left, Monitor Lin Shui stepped onto the podium. I don't know where she pressed the button on the lecture table, and the big screen behind her slowly split from the middle, revealing a white and pure lotus flower carved in the back. The lotus occupies almost half of the wall. The lines and textures on the petals are clearly visible, faintly exuding a strange light. Looking at everyone below, Lin Shui said calmly, "Zhenwu is too powerful. It is not a skill that ordinary people can practice, so it needs to build a foundation. The establishment of the foundation needs to meet 2 requirements at the same time, that is, the mental strength is sufficiently active and the whole body is full of blood. The stone carving on the wall behind me is called Lotus Platform Meditation, and it contains the thoughts of a strong practitioner, which can help everyone quickly get started in meditation and get into meditation. When your spiritual power can clearly outline the Lotus Platform, it means that you meet the spiritual standard. As for the standard of unobstructed qi and blood and transpiration of blood qi, it is necessary to complete the practice of the 10-turn casting art within half an hour, and the foundation can only be established if 2 standards are met at the same time." When Lin Shui explained this, most of the students in the class looked calm. Obviously they already knew this. There were only a few students who were similar to Chen Chu. It was the first time they learned about this. Their faces were full of thought, and they listened very seriously. Remember, it is the country's greatest favor to ordinary people like us that we can build foundations and practice real martial arts. Not everyone can be awakened innately. Okay, let's disperse. Let's start the first meditation practice. After speaking, Lin Shui turned around and walked off the podium, and found an open place to sit cross-legged. Seeing this, other people also followed suit. Chen Chu sat down at the edge of the crowd. According to Lin Shui, he focused on looking at the stone carvings, and suddenly the lotus flower continued to magnify in his eyes. Spiritual power is illusory to ordinary people who have never practiced it, unable to perceive or touch it. But when the lotus flower occupied all of Chen Chu's sight, he subconsciously closed his eyes and then clearly perceived the existence of spiritual power for the first time. In the endless darkness of consciousness, a transparent lotus flower with only some dotted lines slowly rotated, existing in his mind. Is this the meaning of quick entry? It's amazing. Chen Chu was a little surprised. Although he was practicing for the first time, he also understood how difficult it is for ordinary people to perceive their spiritual power from nothing through meditation alone. This is still a case of sitting still. Under normal circumstances, ordinary people may think wildly when they close their eyes and cannot concentrate, let alone concentrate on meditation. One can imagine how much time this picture saved them. But then, when Chen Chu wanted to visualize the lotus entity clearly, he found that the progress was extremely slow and took a lot of energy. After just half an hour, he felt starry-eyed, mentally exhausted, and had to quit meditation. So tired. Chen Chu rubbed his eyebrows. Chen Chu rested for a while and felt more comfortable before turning his head to look around, and found that most of the students had also withdrawn from the meditation state. Some people sat there in a daze, some stared at the stone inscriptions, and these people looked as tired as Chen Chu, as if they were exhausted. But there are still people who continue to meditate. For example, Lin Shui, Yi Rui, and 4 men, 3 women and 9 other people in the front row, and the fat Sha Yui was among them. After waiting for a while, Sha Yui and the other 5 people also exited the meditation state one after another, and finally only Lin Shui, Yi Rui and another boy remained. Although no one reminded them in this situation, everyone kept quiet to avoid disturbing them. The meditation class is over, and the body casting training class is about to start. With the sound of the horn on the wall, Lin Shui and the 3 slowly opened their eyes. At this time, Sha Yui came to sit down in front of Chen Chu at some point, and said in a low voice, "The length of the first meditation is actually a manifestation of talent." Chen Chu turned to look at him. This little fat man seemed to know a lot. Sha Yui said enviously, "Don't look at me, although my spiritual talent is a little better than yours, but I'm still a little worse when facing those 3 guys. I can be sure that they have at least 3 petals. Besides, they don't look tired at all, and they are obviously very energetic. It may take 2 or 3 days to meditate on a complete lotus flower. 3 petals. Chen Chu was taken aback. He didn't even visualize 1 petal in its entirety. He already had 3 petals. How big is the gap? Sha Yui patted Chen Chu on the shoulder and comforted him. "Don't be surprised, this is the gap between geniuses and ordinary people. There is no comparison. And although they didn't practice in advance, they have already used some resources to nourish their spirits, and their innate conditions are much stronger than ours. But don't be discouraged, Chu. Meditation is just 1 step faster. We still have a chance to surpass them." As soon as the little fat man finished speaking, the big screen was closed again and turned on. A middle-aged man in a white exercise suit appeared at the door. He sank slightly and started to make gestures. "Attention everyone." Lin Shui, who was in the front row, said slowly, "The next step is the body casting art. The 18 postures are practiced in a specific order, which can dredge the veins of our whole body and have a certain effect on physical fitness. The blood essence stone in the training room will be opened automatically later. Under the light of the blood essence stone, we can easily feel the blood energy in our body and get started quickly. When practicing, we need to use our spiritual power to stimulate the energy and blood to follow the practice, and at the same time, we need to complete the practice once for 1 turn. Okay, let's start." On the big screen, the middle-aged man started to practice at a very slow speed, and every posture was very standard, giving Chen Chu the feeling that he was practicing Tai Chi and ancient yoga. But when the 6th pose started, the difficulty suddenly increased. Many poses completely violated human body science, and his scalp felt numb from the last few poses. A few minutes later, after the middle-aged man had finished demonstrating once, someone began to practice for the 2nd time. At the same time, on the 10-meter-high ceiling of the training classroom, a red spar the size of a human head lit up, emitting a scarlet light that enveloped everyone. Under the red light, Chen Chu felt hot all over, his blood boiled a little, and he started to practice subconsciously. The first pose is relatively easy to start, the second pose is a bit difficult, but it's okay, the third pose. Hiss. As soon as he reached the third position, half squatted with his right leg stretched out, his hands stretched back and forth, and when he bent down, Chen Chu instantly felt pain in the fascia of his waist. Chen Chu's face turned pale due to the severe cramping pain, and he dared not move. It wasn't until after a while that the pain began to subside and Chen Chu was already sweating profusely that he dared to practice the 4th posture. At the same time, as he practiced, Chen Chu felt that the blood in his whole body was getting hotter and hotter, and there was a kind of qi that seemed to be there, flowing through the whole body along the blood. Sensing this faint qi and blood, Chen Chu's expression froze. He didn't dare to be negligent, and the little mental power he had just cultivated quickly restrained him, allowing this faint blood to circulate along with the cultivation. At this time, everyone was practicing, but many people were stumbling around, and the only ones who were better were a dozen or so people. For example, class monitor Lin Shui and a few girls are also practicing along with the teaching on the big screen at this time. Their movements are unfamiliar, but they are still standard. In addition, their bodies are full of flexibility and are pleasing to the eye. Many boys look at them so intently that they forget to practice. However, it was a boy who completed a turn the fastest. After the practice, he was sweating profusely, and there was a faint white steam on his head. It took 10 minutes. After such a comparison, Chen Chu found that his physical talent seemed to be really poor. He was still struggling to bend over, one leg was bent back, and he was doing the 9th movement. Chapter 6, Heavenly King. The study pressure in this world is not great. In high school, cultural classes start at 8:30 in the morning, martial arts classes at 1:30 in the afternoon, and school ends at 4 o'clock. After school, you can participate in school club activities, or you can leave school and go home. As the school bell rang, the school suddenly became noisy, and thousands of students poured out from various teaching buildings. Soon football, basketball, tennis, and even the corridors were full of students, and those who went to participate in club activities were even more noisy. For most high school students, culture classes are boring, martial arts classes are difficult, but club activities are still interesting. Especially those high school sophomores and seniors who have no talent for cultivation and have chosen cultural courses exude a youthful atmosphere. Accurate youth enjoy a relaxed campus life. Compared with the bustling literature area, the wuxia area is much quieter. Everyone stays in the practice room to practice hard, giving people a feeling of two worlds. Chen Chu came out of Building B with a shoulder bag on his back, rubbing his shoulders. From being excited about Zenwu to being sore and exhausted, it only took a few hours. Needless to say, meditation is already exhausting, but at least with the help of the school, you can get started directly, and the duration of the first time is also in the middle of the class. But the progress of the body casting art was too slow. It wasn't until school was over that he could barely complete the 18 poses. He felt the so-called qi and blood under the light of the bloodstone, and his overall progress was the worst in the class. Not counting the fastest one, the slowest one also completed the first turn in more than 30 minutes, and the others probably took about 20 minutes. And in the 1-hour body casting training class, the fastest person practiced 4 times before stopping, and the training time was getting shorter and shorter. And after he practiced for a while, he felt that his energy and blood were insufficient, and his physical strength could not keep up. In other words, his spiritual talent is not bad in terms of cultivation, but his physical talent is poor because of his weak constitution. Looking up at the scorching sun hanging in the sky, Chen Chu showed a faint smile on his face. Fortunately, as long as you can practice, it's about the same as I expected. He had expected this kind of situation, although he also had the illusion that he was actually a genius before. But the reality is cruel. His talent for comprehensive cultivation is very average, and he is in the middle and lower ranks in a class of 40 students, let alone a full-year class with thousands of students. But the talent is not good enough, and the plugins come to make up for it. Thinking of this, Chen Chu summoned the property page with a thought. Physique, 7.1. Strength, 7. Dexterity, 6. Spirit, 10.1. Talent, Soul Split. Cultivation method, Lotus Platform Meditation Method Progress 5/100 Body Casting Technique 1/100. Split Body. On the property page, there are more meditation and body casting skills learned today, and there is a progress note at the back. In addition, both physical and mental attributes have increased by 0.1, which should be the effect of cultivation. I did not expect that this basic exercise has the effect of improving attributes. Moreover, Chen Chu has tested that when the exercises are recorded on the attribute page, his body will not forget them. For example, when he reached the 10th posture in the first practice of casting, he had to stop his practice because it was too painful and uncomfortable. Then I rested for a while, and when I practiced again, my body smoothly performed the first 9 postures without any difficulty. This kind of phenomenon, which is similar to proficiency in fixing, and the body will be fixed after learning, made the distance between Chen Chu and those geniuses a lot closer. Moreover, he can clearly see the progress of his cultivation, which makes him more motivated to practice. No rush, take your time. With a relaxed smile on his face, Chen Chu walked out of the school unhurriedly. The weather in September was hot, but luckily the urban greening was done well. Chen Chu walked under the shade of trees on the sidewalk and headed towards the market against the cool breeze. At this time, the streets were full of cars, and there were many high-rise buildings along the road. Many billboards hung some celebrity advertisements, and the shops on both sides were also full of various shops, which was very prosperous. When passing by an intersection, The hungry Chen Chu bought an egg pancake and a bottle of fruit juice. Back home, 5 o'clock. Chen Chu first took out some fish meat and thawed it in the microwave, and then processed the dishes for the evening, sliced the twice-cooked pork, and patted the ginger, onion, and garlic. After finishing these, take out the thawed fish and clean it, cut it into small pieces for easy eating. In the room on the second floor, the hexagonal newt, which had grown to 18 centimeters in length, was twice as thick, and under the control of Chen Chu's consciousness, it was eating fish. With the digestion of food in the stomach, the hexagonal salamander became thicker at a speed visible to the naked eye and grew 2 centimeters after eating twice in a row. This growth rate is faster than the swelling after eating jinkala, which completely violates the law of biological growth. The evolution value has also accumulated to 5 points. As long as he eats for another 2 or 3 days, the avatar will be able to start its first evolution. Chen Chu is looking forward to this. The satiated salamander clone lay on the table with a humanized slack on his face while Chen Chu turned on the computer, ready to search for information about Zhenwu. There is no way, because the original body has been weak since he was a child. He has given up the idea of cultivation long ago with self-knowledge, and has not paid much attention to the information of cultivation. Coupled with his young age and ordinary family, Chen Chu at this time had only a half knowledge about cultivation. At this time, with the precise search, a lot of information about Zhenwu suddenly appeared on the internet, including the origin of Zhenwu and the history of Zhenwu's development. There is also the division of the realm of true martial arts that Chen Chu wanted to know, which is called the 9 heavens of true martial arts. The first level is the lowest, and the 9th level is the strongest. As for how strong it has not been introduced in detail. In addition, a random search on the internet can find many performance videos of masters who open martial arts gyms. Some people perform a punch through the wall, some people jump tens of meters high and fly over the walls of tall buildings, or they are surrounded by flames. There are also scenes of strong body trainers resisting submachine guns, sniper rifles, and even testing rocket bombing unscathed. After browsing through the videos enthusiastically for a while, Chen Chu remembered the business, searched, and found an introduction about high school foundation building exercises with high praise. The current high school foundation building is divided into meditation method and body casting method. The method of body casting is the foundation building method that the true martial king merged with the essence of many martial arts 10 years ago and exhausted the mysteries of the human body. This method can help ordinary people stretch the fascia of the whole body, block the veins, move qi and blood, and put the whole body in a state of qi and blood in a short period of time. After research, the body casting method works well for young people under the age of 20, and the effect is most suitable for those under the age of 16. Supplemented with the idea of lotus meditation, it can help people quickly build a foundation. In the past 10 years, the number of practitioners in the country has increased by more than 10 times, and the basic strength of our country has been greatly improved. It's a pity that the lotus meditation method is only first grade and can only be used to build a foundation. It is not comparable to the 9th grade divine lotus meditation method of the Jiaoyu heavenly king. Under this post, there is also this person's division of talent. He believes that in the case of learning meditation method, body casting method supplemented with bloodstone cultivation, the students who complete foundation building within 1 week are top-notch, mid-level within half a month, and low-level within 1 month. As for those who completed the foundation building within 1 month or 2 months, he does not recommend continuing to practice. Because with the school's various resources and systematic training, people who can only build a foundation after a month have no talent for cultivation at all. Even if he practiced forcefully, there was no hope of breaking through the 3rd heaven in this life. And martial arts practice is like sailing against the current. If you don't advance, you will retreat. Instead of spending your whole life on cultivation and living alone when you are old, it is better to be an ordinary person and enjoy life. Zhenwu Heavenly King, Jiaoyu Heavenly King. After reading this post, Chen Chu was impressed by the names of these 2 people. I don't know what kind of person and how strong they are to create this foundation building technique that benefits countless people. Chapter 7. During dinner at night. Zhang Scalan was concerned about Chen Chu's cultivation today. Even his younger brother Chen, who was also a little curious. It's just that it's only the first day of study, and it's just the common method of foundation building, so Chen Chu just said a few words and ended the topic. After dinner, Chen Chu took a shower and returned to the room, sat cross-legged on the bed and began to meditate. As he closed his eyes and concentrated, the illusory lotus flower in his dark mind slowly emerged. According to that post, the first-grade Lotus Platform meditation method is a process of continuous purification and concentration of spiritual power when meditating to manifest this lotus flower. Condensing the loose and empty spiritual power of ordinary people into a real existence that can weakly interfere with matter is the key to building a foundation for introducing qi into the body. As for what is entraining qi into the body, I didn't elaborate, but when it comes to this step, the school teacher will naturally tell them. The lotus flower has 12 petals, and Chen Chu spent half an hour during the meditation class in the afternoon, and more than half of the petals were condensed. At this time, as he practiced, the petal continued to become complete at a slow speed. Call. After more than half an hour, Chen Chu slowly opened his eyes. His expression was a little tired, but his eyes showed a look of satisfaction, because he completely manifested a petal. It's just that the proficiency has only increased to 4 points this time, which is 1 point less than in the afternoon. I don't know if it is because of the help of the meditation map for the first time. But according to this speed, even if it is 4 o'clock once, if he practices twice a day, it is estimated that he will be able to break through in about 10 days. And this practice, the spiritual attribute has increased by 0.1 again. Next, Chen Chu practiced body casting art in the room again. Although there was no light from the bloodstone to assist him, but there was an attribute page, Chen Chu still keenly felt the faint blood in his body when he was practicing the body casting art. During the physical training, the mental power controls the qi and blood to follow the movement, strengthening the physique in a subtle way, and the first time took 35 minutes. Then I practiced it again. It took 30 minutes, proficiency +2. It's just that this time the physical attribute has only increased by 0.1, and the effect is less than half of the increase in the first transfer of qi and blood in the afternoon. After practicing twice in a row, Chen Chu couldn't do it anymore. He felt exhausted, both physically and mentally exhausted. The physique is still too bad, just transporting qi and blood for 2 rounds will not work. While sighing, Chen Chu drank some hot water, lay down on the bed and fell into a deep sleep. Chen Chu was very motivated for this kind of exercise that could cultivate extraordinary strength. Even if it's because of his physique, it doesn't matter if he is slow at the beginning, he has an attribute page to fix his proficiency, and hard work will pay off. If it weren't for the fact that practicing once is very exhausting physically and mentally, and requires a long rest to recover, he wished he could practice 24 hours a day. The next day, as soon as Chen Chu entered the classroom, everyone was discussing about cultivation. Some people ask the other party how many petals they have meditated on, and some people are concerned about how to practice the body casting technique so that it can be faster and last longer, and they feel that it is very difficult to practice. There are also a few girls who are ready to give up cultivation based on their complaints. Every time they practiced, they were sore and tired, and after meditation, their eyes were full of stars, and they felt nauseous. Obviously, they had no cultivation talent in this situation. When Chen Chu came to his seat and sat down, Sha Yui in the front row came over. "Ah Chu, how is the progress of your meditation and body casting art?" "It's okay," Chen Chu said casually. Sha Yui asked persistently, "How much is it?" "You guess." "We're good brothers. You actually let me guess that it's just the progress of the foundation building technique." Sha Yui looked heartbroken. "Didn't you also say that? Why don't you tell me how far you have cultivated?" Chen Chu was unmoved. "There's nothing to say about that. I saw." Sha Yui modestly said, "My talent is very ordinary, and now I can only meditate to the 3rd petal, and the casting art can barely carry 2 rounds in half an hour. I only practiced 6 times last night, and I felt very tired and went to bed." Chen Chu suddenly didn't want to talk to this guy anymore. Casting Ju can carry 2 rounds in half an hour, which means that he can practice once in 15 minutes, and he can practice 6 times in 1 breath, and his meditation method is also twice as fast as him. Sha Yui asked curiously, "Ah Chu, what about you?" "It's much worse than yours. Meditate on the 1st petal, and carry the qi and blood for 30 minutes. From Sha Yui's progress, it can be seen that his progress is average, so Chen Chu didn't hide it. But after Chen Chu finished speaking, Sha Yui was slightly taken aback. "That's not right. I remember, Ah Chu, you barely completed 1 operation for nearly an hour yesterday, right? It should be that the 1st practice is relatively unfamiliar, and the 2nd practice at night is much more proficient," Chen Chu said casually. "Is that so?" Sha Yui nodded thoughtfully. The cultural class in the morning passed by in a flash. At noon, Chen Chu took the food from the cafeteria and sat down in a corner of the cafeteria. Before eating, Sha Yui followed excitedly. Sha Yui said excitedly, "Ah Chu, the freshmen of the whole grade have been ranked. How do you guess the rank of class leader Lin Shui?" There's a ranking for this? Chen Chu was a little confused. He had heard of the rankings of what colleges spent, but he didn't expect to go to high school, and these talents would have a freshman ranking after exposure to cultivation. Ah Chu, don't underestimate this ranking. Sha Yui shook his head. There are more than 1,800 new students in Wugao this year, and all of them have practiced the foundation building method. Those who can stand out are geniuses. And the ranking only records the top 100, and it's not easy to be on the list. For example, and Chenking from the first class has already visualized 11 petals of petals, and the casting Ju can carry 7 revolutions in half an hour, ranking first. I feel that within 2 days, she will be the first to successfully establish a foundation. Okay, I'm a waste. Hearing this exaggerated progress, Chen Chu didn't know what to say for a while. He barely made 1 turn in half an hour, others can turn 7 in half an hour, and the idea of the lotus platform has reached the point of manifesting 11 petals. This gap was so big that Chen Chu couldn't even get jealous. Seeing that Chen Chu didn't speak for a while, Sha Yui, who thought he was being hit, quickly comforted him. Ah Chu, don't be discouraged, this is just foundation building. The speed with which they practice the foundation building technique does not mean that they are in good agreement with the real martial arts technique. Even if we are 10 days and a half months behind them in building the foundation this time, as long as the true martial arts we practice are highly compatible, we will soon be able to catch up with them. The real martial arts still fit. What is that? Chen Chu was a little surprised. Cough. I actually don't know much about this. My brother mentioned it to me casually before. Sha Yui coughed dryly. Guess, how many names is our monitor Lin Shui? Ha 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 ha, you definitely won't be able to guess. Before Chen Chu could guess, Sha Yui laughed loudly and said impatiently. Lin Shui is only 67, 67th, I'm dying of laughter. That woman was so proud yesterday. I thought her talent was exaggerated. I didn't expect that she was only 67th. Ha 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 ha. Ah Chu, you know, I laughed for a long time when I saw this ranking. Cough. Chen Chu glanced at the girl who was walking behind him and stopped suddenly, especially the girl with an increasingly indifferent expression, changing the subject without a trace. Sha Yui, how do you know this? It seems that only I know the progress of cultivation and who ranks them. Don't you know? Sha Yui was taken aback. The ranking of freshmen is posted on the school's official website. Anyone who follows the official website will know. As for the progress of cultivation, they said it themselves when someone asked them in the morning, and someone specially sorted it out and made a list. Although this ranking is not very accurate and changes every day, it also shows their talent potential, and many teachers are paying attention. After finishing speaking, Sha Yui shrank his neck and said inexplicably, It's strange, why do I feel a little cold? Chapter 8 Twins. Looking at the excited Sha Yui opposite, Chen Chu kicked him under the table indiscriminately. But this kick was not too hard. Sha Yui didn't react, and when he was about to continue to speak, a cold voice came from behind him. This classmate, 67, is it funny? Sha Yui froze for an instant, and he recognized that it was the voice of their squad leader. Sha Yui paused with a smile on his face, turned around with a stiff neck, and suddenly his face was full of smiles. Ha, ha ha. It's the squad leader, sir, do you want to sit together? With that enthusiastic look, it was completely impossible to see that he was still laughing at the other party's low ranking just now. I'm only 67, but I dare not sit with this classmate. Lin Shui folded her hands on her chest, sneered, glanced at the handsome young man sitting across from her, then lowered her head to Sha Yui and said calmly. This classmate, I remember your name is Sha, may I ask where you are on the freshman list? Ranking, what ranking? Sha Yui looked bewildered. Seeing him pretending to be stupid, Lin Shui sneered and said, Why, dare to laugh at others behind their backs, but dare not admit it? Didn't you just laugh at my low ranking? Is there? Squad leader, you must have heard it wrong. You are the face of our class. How could I laugh at you? It's too late to respect you. Sha Yui spoke righteously and looked at Chen Chu after speaking. Isn't it, Ah Chu? Cough. Chen Chu coughed dryly, lowered his head and took a sip of the soup. I don't know anything. Seeing this, Sha Yui rolled his eyes and his eyes said, Brother, you are not loyal enough. Chen Chu glanced at him and replied, Don't struggle, she heard everything you said earlier, even if I explain it to you, it's useless. In this case, I think it's easier for you to commit suicide. Snort. Looking at the two boys flirting with each other, Lin Shui didn't say anything, just turned around and left with a hum. As soon as Lin Shui left, Sha Yui put on a bitter face. Ah. Chu, it's over, I'm going to be written down in her notebook. Chen Chu was annoyed. Who told you to laugh at others behind their backs? It's nothing to say something about rankings behind their backs, but you still laugh at them. And it's fine to laugh at it, the Lord just happened to pass by and heard. With this luck, even Chen Chu couldn't help but shake his head. But one thing to say, this squad leader is really beautiful. Her black hair was dyed purple, her oval-shaped face was fair and bright, and her delicate facial features were painted with light eyeliner, making her long and narrow eyes even more charming. He should be 1.7 meters tall, slender and well-proportioned, with a short-sleeved white shirt school uniform bulging up, at least a B+, maybe a C. The long legs and trousers are also straight and slender, coupled with the unique youthful atmosphere of a girl. It is no wonder that she has become very popular in the class in just 2 days. According to the scoring marks on the internet, she can score 90 points just for her appearance, which belongs to the goddess level. However, Chen Chu originally thought that the squad leader had a cold personality, but he didn't expect it to be hot and not easy to mess with. Speaking of this, Xia Yui looked around mysteriously, and then said in a low voice, "Ah Chu, did you know that the squad leader has a twin sister?" Twins. Sister. Chen Chu paused slightly. Xia Yui nodded. Yes, the squad leader's sister is Lin Yu, and she is also the squad leader of Class 9. She is as beautiful as our squad leader. Even Chen Chu was a little surprised this time. This beautiful girl is still identical twins, TSK. I don't know where Xia Yui got the news, and then, while eating, he went sip with Chen Chu about the class, all kinds of content. Time passed like this. The martial arts class in the afternoon is still the same practice classroom. In the 500 square meter practice classroom, 40 people were scattered, and there was no teacher to supervise them, and the class monitors Lin Shui and Yi Rui maintained order. Perhaps in the eyes of those martial arts teachers, these students who are not even foundation establishment are not qualified to bother them. However, Chen Chu felt that, in fact, he had been screening people with cultivation talent since yesterday. This talent is not only physical fitness, but also will and self-discipline. If one does not practice hard without a teacher's supervision and is lazy, then even if this person can practice real martial arts, it is of little value in training. It is better to give up early than to work hard. Chen Chu found a corner and sat down, closed his eyes and concentrated, and entered a state of meditation in the blink of an eye. After 4 o'clock in the afternoon, as the school bell rang, in the training room, Chen Chu, who was sore all over, sat down on the ground, panting. At this time, his shirt was wet with sweat. After half an hour of meditation, he rested for a while, and then began to practice casting art to move blood. With the help of the blood essence stone and blood light that was opened later, it took over an hour to carry 3 rounds, proficiency +3, constitution +0.2, and the shortest time was 24 minutes. Coupled with meditation proficiency +4, spiritual attribute +0.1, the overall progress is good. It was because of the extra transfer of qi and blood that caused his physical energy to be exhausted. At this time, Chen Chu felt empty and weak in his body, and because of the unobstructed veins, he was dripping freely. This feeling is very strange. Finally, school is over. So tired. Yeah, body casting is too difficult. Wang Gang, do you want to go to the club together? I'm going to take a shower first. Then let's go first. There are always a small number of geniuses. Chen Chu observed it today. When the students in the class practiced for the first time yesterday, most of them could carry it around in half an hour. But today after a class, many people still only carried 2 rounds. The duration was about 20 minutes, and there were only a dozen of them under 20 minutes. Although these people were not as tired and strenuous as he was after training, and their physiques were better, but the progress seemed to be much slower than Chen Chu imagined. Of course, Chen Chu, geniuses like Monitor Lin Shui and Yi Rui, didn't pay attention. He is not at the same level as these people now, whether it is talent or background. Forced comparison will only make him discouraged. Life is long and the race between the tortoise and the hare has just begun, so there is no rush. Chen Chu rested for a while, and then got up after recovering a lot of physical strength. There are public bathrooms on each floor of the training building, and men and women are separated. After taking a shower, you only need to throw your clothes into the cleaning and drying machine, and it only takes a few minutes to look brand new. Chen Chu met Xia Yui when he came out after taking a shower and getting dressed. "Ah Chu, are you going back?" Chen Chu nodded. "Yes, what's the matter?" "It's nothing." Xia Yui shook his head, and then asked suddenly, "By the way, Chu, have you bought anything to replenish your qi and blood these 2 days?" Replenishing qi and blood. Chen Chu was slightly taken aback. Seeing his bewildered look, Xia Yui raised his forehead. I knew it was like this. Xia Yui patiently explained, the main function of the body casting technique we practice is to move qi and blood, open up the muscles and veins of the whole body, and at the same time have a certain effect of body training. This kind of situation consumes a lot of physical energy. At the beginning of cultivation, ordinary people carry 3 or 4 rotations at a time, and practicing twice a day is the limit. If it is too much, it will hurt the body. Only when your physique becomes stronger in the later stage can you carry 10 revolutions in one breath. If you want to increase the number and progress of your practice, and quickly strengthen your physique, you must buy some low-level blood energy resources to replenish your energy and blood. Even for those geniuses who are ranked on the freshman list, their innate physique is better than ours, and they still need to use resources to replenish energy and blood. Chen Chu was stunned. So that's the case, I said. Why those people only practiced for 1 day, and they have turned 5 to 7? They are all ordinary people, how can there be such a big gap in physique? It took a long time for this reason. Chapter 9, Resources. After listening to Xia Yui's explanation, Chen Chu was stunned and asked curiously, how much is the cheapest resource for replenishing qi and blood? Is it the cheapest? Xia Yui thought for a while. Currently, there are 7 kinds of resources suitable for our foundation building. The cheapest one is the blood antler from Tianyu Group Company, which only costs 10,000 yuan a piece. Taking 1 piece can maintain the energy and blood transport consumption for 5 consecutive turns, which is very cost-effective. Farewell. When he heard that the cheapest qi and blood resource cost 10,000 yuan, Chen Chu knew why he didn't know, because it was not something he could afford. Only Zhang Scalen in his family has income. As the grassroots manager of a metal company, Zhang Scalen earns about 7,000 yuan a month. After deducting insurance and family expenses, she only has a little left. This is the case where the 2 brothers have free education and only need to pay for food. 10,000 yuan is nothing to rich families like Lin Shui, but it is a lot of money to Chen Chu's family. Not to mention that a serving of blood velvet can only last for 5 qi and blood transfers, which is a waste of money. Old Xia, thank you for your reminder. I have something to do and I'll leave first. Chen Chu patted Xia Yui on the shoulder and left with a shoulder bag on his back. Lao Xia, am I the youngest? Looking at Chen Chu's leaving back, Xia Yui was flustered in the wind. He didn't know how he suddenly turned into an old Xia from a youth in his prime. I'm obviously very handsome, right? Chen Chu passed by the school playground, thinking about what Xia Yui said earlier. Obviously, Xia Yui should have noticed that he forcibly moved his qi and blood in the afternoon and was obviously weak after practicing, so he waited for him outside on purpose. Although they have only been together for a few days, the 2 hit it off very well and have some understanding of each other's situation. For example, Xia Yui knew that Chen Chu didn't seem to know many common senses about cultivation, so he came here to remind him so as not to practice too eagerly and damage his body. At the same time, tell him that if you really want to speed up your cultivation progress, you can buy some resources to supplement your blood. It's just a pity that Chen Chu has no money. And even if he doesn't need resources, according to the current progress, he can still have the confidence to build a foundation within a month of step-by-step cultivation. However, Chen Chu remembered this favor and treated this guy as a true friend and changed his address from classmate Xia to Lao Xia. No way, who made this guy look old-fashioned? After 5 o'clock, Chen Chu returned home with 2 shopping bags. First made a large plate of fish and went upstairs. In the fish tank, the hexagonal salamander, which had grown to 22 centimeters, raised its head, looked at a piece of fish falling from outside the sky and opened its mouth to bite. The taste of salamanders is different from that of human beings. Chen Chu's consciousness can feel the fresh and tender taste of the fish after entering his mouth. It is delicious. Well, it's the salamander's taste that tastes delicious, and normal people eat this kind of frozen raw fish only fishy and cold. After eating a large plate of fish, the axolotl swelled to a length of 24 centimeters, and its head was already the size of an egg, more than double that of a few days ago. Soon. Looking at the evolutionary value that had accumulated to 7 points, Chen Chu nodded in satisfaction. Brother, I'm back. At 1 o'clock past 6, Chen Hu rushed into the house with his school bag on his back, sweating profusely, apparently having a fight with his friends on the road. I'm back. Chen Chu, who was cooking in the kitchen, didn't answer. Go and wash your hands, and help me arrange the dishes and chopsticks by the way. Good. As soon as Chen Hu threw his school bag on the sofa, he washed his hands and went to the kitchen to help. Holding the bowls and chopsticks, Chen Hu approached Chen Chu curiously. Brother, you have been practicing for 2 days. How do you feel? Have you changed very much? Chen Chu glanced at him sideways and said angrily, do you think that what I practice is a fairy technique that I can fly to the sky and escape from the ground in 2 days? Hey, didn't everyone say that Zhenwu is very powerful? Chen Hu laughed. I don't know if it was because of the fusion of memories. Chen Chu didn't need to pretend, and he integrated into this family naturally. It's just that I feel a little unaccustomed to the sudden addition of a mother. After all, he was in his early 20s before time travel. At 6:30, when Chen Chu's food was ready, Zhang Scalan also came back from get off work. At the dinner table, she cared about Chen Chu's study progress and whether she was suitable for school. After 7 o'clock in the evening, after taking a shower, Chen Chu sat on the bed and prepared to practice. At this time, there was a knock on the door, followed by Zhang Shaolin's voice, Ah Chu, are you asleep? No. Then Zhang Scalan pushed open the door and walked in with a bank card in her hand. Chen Chu looked at her suspiciously. Mom, what's the matter? Looking at her son who was sitting cross-legged and ready to practice, Zhang Scalan said softly, when I went to work today, Sister Wang told me that after I started practicing Zhenwu in high school, I needed to replenish my energy and blood. Sister Wang's son was in the first year of high school a few years ago, and he bought a blood resource called Jinhu ointment. It is said that the effect is very good, but unfortunately it is a bit expensive and her son has no talent for cultivation, so he finally studied the cultural department. With that said, Zhang Scalan handed the card to Chen Chu. I don't know much about these, so I can't help you much in cultivation. However, there should be some students in your class who are eating these. You can ask them which one is better. The day after tomorrow is Saturday. There are more than 90,000 in this card, and the password is your birthday. If you think you need it, go buy it and eat. Looking at the bank card handed over, Chen Chu was slightly silent. The money should be all of Zhang Shaolin's savings over the years. Mom, I don't need it. Chen Chu shook his head slightly and pushed the card back. Today, a classmate also told me about qi and blood resources, but I don't need them. No need. Zhang Scalan was puzzled. Chen Chu nodded. There are only 2 situations where qi and blood resources are needed to replenish qi and blood. One is that the talent is not enough and qi and blood resources are needed to supplement the foundation. The other is that the talent is very good. The purpose of replenishing qi and blood is to speed up the progress of cultivation, to build a foundation 1 step ahead of others, and to be 1 step ahead. And my situation is that I have some cultivation talents, but I am not a genius, so I can practice step by step and there is no need to compete with others. Ah Chu, are you sure you don't need qi and blood resources? Don't worry about the money. If you think this money is not enough, Mom can go to Sister Wang and the others to borrow some. Zhang Scalan was a little hesitant. After all, she knew that her son's health had always been poor. Chen Chu was slightly touched, but also helpless. Mom, I really don't need it. In the end, under Chen Chu's persuasion, Zhang Scalan reluctantly believed that he really didn't need to replenish qi and blood, and walked out suspiciously. Chen Chu didn't lie to her, he really didn't need it. Even if the 90,000 yuan was used, it was only half a month in advance to build the foundation. After all, after the body casting art was practiced, one had to meditate mentally to create the lotus platform. And the practice of true martial arts after foundation establishment is just the beginning. Therefore, there is no need to exhaust the family's wealth to grab this time. Chapter 10, Fusion Genes. The next day, when Chen Chu came to the classroom and just sat down, Xia Yui in front came over again. Ah Chu, did you know that in linking, who is ranked number 1, completed his foundation building yesterday afternoon and has already gone to building C to learn real martial arts today? So fast. Chen Chu was a little surprised. The foundation building was completed in 2 days. Even if the family has money and resources, it still needs an exaggerated talent. This point can be seen from their squad leader Lin Shui. Xia Yui nodded enviously. It's not just her, I found out that the top 10 people on this list will complete foundation building in a few days. Including our squad leader, I heard that she has already visualized the 10th petal, and her qi and blood will turn 8 times in half an hour. It is expected that she will be able to build a foundation the day after tomorrow. Chen Chu then asked curiously, what about you, Lao Sha? How far have you cultivated? I'm fine, fine. Xia Yui laughed and then complained. Ah Chu, can you not call me Lao Sha? I am so handsome. You can call me Ah Hui. Chen Chu nodded. No problem, Lao Sha. Ah Hui, it's Ah Hui. I know, Lao Sha. Ah Chu, I'm going to break up with you for 3 hours. Seeing that he didn't repent, Xia Yui turned around fiercely and went to talk to the little beauty at the front desk. Chen Chu just smiled at this. You're just old and honest, but you don't want to show your old age. What do you want Sazahui to do? Do you want to chop it together? I don't know if it's because someone has already established a foundation. In the training class this afternoon, Chen Chu found that everyone was working hard and earnestly. Unfortunately, talent does exist. Some people have been practicing for 3 days and are still standing still, some have made good progress, and some have made amazing progress. For example, Yi Rui, the martial arts committee member. Chen Chu didn't know how his visualization was progressing, but within half an hour, he moved his chi and blood 7 times in one go, and he seemed to be able to handle it with ease, without using all his strength. Not to mention Lin Shui, the squad leader, carried it 8 times in less than half an hour, then found a place to sit cross-legged and continued to meditate. Their mental strength was astonishingly abundant, which was different from Chen Chu's meditation, which took half a day to recover. Obviously, they should also use resources similar to replenishing chi and blood, which can replenish or activate mental power. Thoughtful, Chen Chu carried his chi and blood twice today and stopped practicing. Each time took 20 minutes, proficiency +2, and physical attributes increased by +0.1. The progress of cultivation is average, but the improvement is stable. As the school bell rang, Chen Chu, who didn't sweat much today but was a little tired, packed up and was ready to leave. Ah Chu, wait a minute. Xia Yui ran over in a panic. What's wrong? Xia Yui ran over. He said, it's only 4 o'clock, what are you doing so early when you go back? Do you want to join the flower tea club with me? Chen Chu looked at him strangely. You still have time to join the club, and the squad leader is about to build a foundation. Although he didn't ask about Xia Yui's family, Chen Chu felt that his family should be good, at least not short of money, and his talent was also very good. Shouldn't he work hard to build a foundation earlier now? Xia Yui said indifferently, don't rush, my brother said that the way of cultivation lies in relaxation, and you don't need to pursue too much momentary gain or loss. The squad leader is talented. It's normal to build a foundation a few days earlier than us. It's boring not to compare with her, and Xia Yui stopped talking immediately when he said this. And he also looked behind him, as if he was afraid that Lin Shui would suddenly appear again, making Chen Chu want to laugh. Facing Chen Chu's strange gaze, Xia Yui changed the subject and said, Azuo, don't you think cultivation is too boring? It's better to look at beautiful women and relax your mind. Let me tell you, after my research and observation in the past few days, the beauties in the Flower Tea Club rank first in Wugao, and there are many high-quality beauties. Not to mention the beautiful seniors in the 2nd and 3rd years of high school, there are many beautiful girls in the 1st year of high school just like us. Think about it, isn't it very pleasant and refreshing to sit and drink tea and chat with a group of young and beautiful girls on a scorching summer day? Xia Yui seemed to have thought of the picture of himself surrounded by flowers, and his face was full of intoxication, so he didn't see Chen Chu's weird eyes. Ah Chu, what do you think? Cough. Chen Chu coughed dryly, your suggestion is good, but I have something to go back early, so you can go alone. Right, look back. After finishing speaking, Chen Chu patted Xia Yui on the shoulder, nodded slightly to the girl behind him with arms crossed, then turned and left. Behind. Xia Yui was startled, turned around suddenly, and saw Lin Shui gave him a flat look, then left disgusting and passed by. Xia Yui was a little confused. He obviously didn't speak ill of Lin Shui this time, did he? Why is it disgusting? The next morning, Chen Hu looked upstairs and shouted, Brother, I went out to play with my friends, and I won't come back for lunch at noon. Chen Chu's voice came from above, go. Today is Saturday, there is no class, but Zhongscalen has to work overtime and is not at home. In the room, a hexagonal salamander that has grown to 28 centimeters long is lying on the desk. The salamander has a broad and flat head, and the whole body is white and pink, with a tadpole-like white tail trailing behind it. Coupled with those slick black eyes, the 3 pairs of red feathery tentacles behind the left and right cheeks spread out backwards, and the limbs are lying on the ground, looking a little cute. At this time, the evolution value of the clone has accumulated to 9 points, and its size is close to the limit of the species. I saw the salamander biting a piece of fish, chewing with thin teeth in its mouth, making a squeaking sound. On the side, Chen Chu was leaning on the chair, resting his elbows on the table, resting his chin on his palms in a daze while his consciousness was immersed in another perspective. As pieces of food entered the body, with the salamander's stomach as the center, a faint heat flow spread throughout the body, starting a new round of growth. While eating and digesting, The fish on the table disappeared at a speed visible to the naked eye. When 2 plates of food more than twice the size of the salamander were eaten, half an hour had passed, and after 2 rounds of growth, the salamander had reached a length of 30 centimeters. At this time, rows of words appeared in front of Chen Chu's eyes. Your salamander avatar gains a little evolution point by eating a lot of food. Your avatar has reached the limit of biological growth. If you continue to eat, you can no longer grow. The current accumulation of evolution points has reached 10 points, which meets the evolution requirements. Do you want to turn on evolution? Remarks, the potential of this avatar is low, and it will not help the host's combat power much after evolution. You can choose to absorb a biological gene to increase the potential when you start evolution. Seeing the note in the back line, Chen Chu sat up straight suddenly and even showed surprise on his face. Absorb other biological genes to increase the potential. Chen Chu had always been worried about the fact that the salamander clone was too weak. Although it can rely on evolution to break through the biological limit, even if it grows to 1 meter long, what about 10 meters long? Still a body of flesh and blood, can it stop bullets? At that time, let alone fighting power, it would be difficult for those weak limbs to support a huge body and run faster. But now. Chapter 11 Evolution. Chen Chu pondered slightly, and then asked softly, how does this absorption gene operate? Are there any restrictions? After a few days of research, Chen Chu found that this property page was not very intelligent, and would only give a reminder when certain conditions were met. It also responds to his queries when it comes to the prompt that is currently being triggered. Sure enough, a row of transparent text slowly emerged. When the evolution is started, the clone needs to swallow the creature whose gene is to be fused intact and absorb the strongest gene of the creature to optimize itself. Remarks, only one gene can be fused each time the evolution is turned on. Can only one gene be fused at a time, but even so, it's good. Chen Chu licked his lips, suppressing the excitement in his heart. At this time, countless thoughts emerged in his mind, thinking about what biological genes should be fused to the salamander clone. Under the condition that a biological gene can be fused every time it evolves, Chen Chu is confident that it only needs to evolve a few more times and the salamander avatar can become very powerful. First, he eliminated elephants, ligers, and the like. Not to mention whether he can get these animals, and even if he can get them in a short time, he won't be able to eat them all, and the genetic potential of these animals is actually mediocre. Although elephants are the largest animals on land, they are actually not very prominent in terms of strength, speed, and flexibility, including ligers and tigers. If you want to say what is the strongest single creature on the earth under the same size, it is naturally an insect. Ordinary ants can lift objects dozens of times their own weight, but those mammals cannot do this. There are also fleas, which can jump more than 200 times their own body height in an instant, which is equivalent to a person who is 1.7 meters jumping to a height of more than 200 meters. So Chen Chu thought for a while and locked his target on the insects. It's just that he doesn't know much about insects, but that's not a problem. Chen Chu turned on the computer and entered what is the most powerful insect in the insect world on the search page. Immediately, dozens of hot words popped up below. The hexagonal salamander was too weak, and it was difficult for its limbs to support itself to crawl, so Chen Chu's first choice was to strengthen its strength. At 9 o'clock in the morning, Chen Chu took a taxi to the largest flower, bird, fish and insect market in the city. As long as it is a pet here, no matter it is flying in the sky, crawling on the ground, or swimming in the water, you can find it. For example, Chen Chu bought the original hexagonal salamander pet here. On the street, in a shop called Fantastic Birds and Insects, Chen Chu walked in directly and asked the young man sitting at the coffee table drinking tea, "Boss, do you have a unicorn here?" "Unicorn, yes." The young boss nodded. Compared with ants whose strength is dozens of times their own, the unicorn has the title of king of insects, and its biggest record is to pry up objects 850 times its own strength. This burst of power far surpasses other animals and insects. The young boss brought Chen Chu inside, pointed to several boxes on the shelf and introduced, "I have 3 varieties of unicorns here. They are the 2-pronged rhinoceros beetle, the Tros Nanyang pocket and the mammoth pocket. Do you want to see which one?" There are 3 kinds of unicorns, each of which has a different body shape. The largest mammoth, Dao, is as big as half of Chen Chu's palm and more than 10 centimeters long, and Nanyang Dao is similar. With a glance, Chen Chu chose the last and smallest one. "Boss, I want a 2-pronged rhinoceros beetle." "Okay, 50 yuan a piece. Do you want to buy some feet?" "Need not." After scanning the QR code to pay, Chen Chu left the flower and bird market with a small box containing unicorns, and chose to take a taxi back extravagantly. He couldn't wait. In the room on the second floor, the hexagonal salamander lying on the table looked at Chen Chu, and there was a box with a unicorn next to it. Suppressing the expectation in his heart, Chen Chu opened the box and grabbed the unicorn. Compared with the mammoth's big pocket, which is more than 10 centimeters long and half the size of a palm, the two-pronged rhinoceros beetle is only about 5 centimeters, which is not an exaggeration. At this moment, as if feeling his own destiny, Chen Chu sent a strong struggling force from his hand, and the one-horned fairy was struggling. It's a pity, facing the fingers pinching the sides of its body, it had nowhere to rely on it. Even if it had a lot of strength, it was useless, so Chen Chu directly pinched its head and body, and broke it off. With a click, the unicorn immortal was killed, its head and body separated. It is then eaten bit by the salamanders. At the same time, Chen Chu called out the property page, and with a thought, he clicked on the option of whether to enable evolution at the bottom. Boom! Accompanied by the certainty, Chen Chu consciously felt a fiery power that had been accumulated for a long time erupt in the salamander, sweeping across his body like a torrent. Under this evolutionary force, the bones and muscles of the hexagonal salamander's whole body underwent earth-shaking changes, and the cells split and compressed crazily. Even deeper genetics are changing, evolving. And when the salamander avatar began to evolve, waves of heat gushed out of Chen Chu's body, and the muscles, bones, and cells that passed by were strengthened one after another. This change caught him by surprise. It's just that compared to the torrent of evolutionary energy in the salamander, the amount in his body is very small, which just makes him stronger. This evolution took almost half an hour. By the time it was finished, the salamander avatar on the table had changed drastically. The body length is still 30 centimeters, but the body shape has become much more slender and coordinated. The belly with rib marks in the middle is covered by solid muscles. The wide and flat head became a little rounder, and the 3 pairs of feather horns on both sides became tooth-like, with a horny hard color, not as sensual as before. The fins on the back also spread from the hind body to the neck, and become horny white teeth, extending to the tail and becoming broad and flat again. The biggest change is the slender limbs, which have doubled in size and become strong and powerful, especially the muscles of the hind legs are obvious and full of explosiveness. Even the claw tips of the limbs were black, with sharp horny growths, exuding a sharp breath. This is still a cosmetic change. In Chen Chu's perception, the bones of the salamander's whole body became stronger than before, and the muscles of the whole body were full of explosive feeling like steel wires. And these changes were brought about by absorbing the unicorn gene. The strength of the unicorn comes from its muscle fibers and strong exoskeleton, which can explode and bear 850 times its own weight. It can be said that the current salamander avatar has evolved into another species, and it is only related to the hexagonal salamander in appearance. After feeling the change of the clone, Chen Chu called out the attribute page with a thought. Constitution, 10.5. Strength, 10. Dexterity, 9. Spirit, 13.5. Talent, soul split. Cultivation method, Lotus Platform Meditation Method Progress 21/100 Body Casting Technique 11/100. Separate body, hexagonal salamander. Level, low-level extraordinary and ordinary creature that has evolved once, just touched the extraordinary gate, the adult body length limit is 70 centimeters and the combat power is average. Talent, strength powerful muscle fibers and bones, have the potential to explode 100 times their own strength. Note, the current physical strength can only explode 10 times the strength. Evolution value, 0/50. Chapter 12, 100 times power. This time the avatar evolved, and Chen Chu's body also received feedback. The 4 attributes have all been improved by 3 points, reaching the standard of ordinary people as a whole. The spiritual attribute is even more than that of ordinary people. This change was a surprise. On the contrary, the change of the newt avatar is even more exaggerated. It directly evolved from a weak creature to a low-level extraordinary creature and obtained a talent called strength. Although the notes indicate that the body of the current avatar can only burst out 10 times the strength, but the potential can reach 100 times as long as the body strength keeps up. This talent doesn't seem very strong now, and it's the same with 100 times the size, but what about when the clone evolves to tens of meters, or even hundreds of meters in length? When the time comes, the explosion of 100 times its own power will be enough to shake the heavens and the earth. Suppressing the excitement in his heart, Chen Chu weighed the avatar again. Before evolution, a 30-centimeter salamander weighed only 7 tails, but after evolution, the same volume has reached more than 3 caddies and the density has increased by about 5 times. After weighing, it was another test. For example, crawling, the strong limbs allow the avatar to crawl quickly on the ground, much more flexible than before, just like a small lizard. At the same time, the claws of the limbs can scratch paper like sharp knives. Because of the strengthening of the bones, even the teeth are much sharper, and the bite force becomes stronger, which can easily crush the fish skull. Chen Chu was very satisfied with the evolution effect this time. His avatar finally changed from a weak chicken to a carnivorous beast, even though it was only as big as a little milk dog. Next, Chen Chu used his consciousness to control the avatar to crawl around in the house, adapting to the changes after evolution, and stopped when he felt the same. It's time for today's training. Chen Chu opened his eyes. I don't know how the practice will change after the overall physical fitness is improved. In anticipation, Chen Chu sat cross-legged on the bed, closed his eyes, and entered a state of meditation. In the dark consciousness space, a lotus flower composed of dotted lines rotates slowly. 3 petals of the lotus flower are clearly visible, representing the progress of Chen Chu's 3 petals. At this moment, the lotus flower was covered by a stronger spiritual force than before. Under this spiritual meditation, a transparent petal gradually became clear and solid from the bottom, and even the lines on it were clearly visible. One Piece. On the bed, Chen Chu let out a breath with a smile on his face. This time, the progress of the training was +9, the spiritual attribute was +0.2, the training speed was twice as fast as before, and the mental exhaustion was not so strong after the training. But then Chen Chu's eyes showed thoughtfulness, and he thought of the person who ranked first among freshmen. Now he can condense a lotus petal in one meditation, and he can practice twice a day. Normally, he can practice meditation on a lotus platform in 6 days, and his spiritual talent is top-notch. But that girl named Chenking completed the foundation building in 2 days, even with the resources of warming and nourishing spiritual power. The basic spiritual attribute is at least 20 points or more. There is also physique. The basic attribute must be more than 20 points, otherwise, even if there are resources to replenish blood, it is impossible to complete the foundation in 2 days. And there are geniuses like Lin Shui who are ranked in the top 100 and are expected to be able to build a foundation in 4 or 5 days. Thinking of this, Chen Chu let out a breath slowly, suppressing the faint sense of superiority brought by the attribute page in his heart. He couldn't underestimate others. After a short rest, Chen Chu continued to practice the body casting art. Then I found that the speed of cultivation has indeed improved, and even the blood circulating in the body has become much thicker, and the body training effect is better and lasts longer. In just 40 minutes, Chen Chu transported qi and blood 3 times in a row, each time taking 13 minutes. After the training was over, Chen Chu showed satisfaction on his tired face. It's not bad, the speed of carrying and the durability have both increased by half compared to before. This time the cultivation progress is +3, and the physique is +0.1. The effect of basic exercises on physical enhancement is getting lower and lower, just like mental attributes. Chen Chu predicts that when he reaches the 10th revolution, he can strengthen his physical fitness by at most 2 to 3 points. But even so, today's harvest is also great. Especially the evolved clone made Chen Chu realize its potential and its importance to him. But soon he had a headache. Because the evolved hexagonal salamander eats too much. It is only 30 centimeters long, but its food intake is several times that of before. It eats several caddies of fish in one meal. It feels like my family will go bankrupt soon. In the afternoon, Chen Chu fell silent as he watched the avatar on the table rise by 1 centimeter. The growth rule of the avatar is that each time it eats food of the same size, it will grow slightly once, and it needs 2 consecutive small growths to obtain 1 point of evolution. That is to say, the current hexagonal avatar needs to dry 3 caddies of fish for 1 meal, and 12 caddies for 4 meals a day, and this is still the present. When it grows to 60 or 70 centimeters later, or even evolves to 1 or 2 meters long, maybe it will eat 1 or 200 caddies of meat a day. Thinking of this, Chen Chu sighed. Let's evolve once more and let him go. The hexagonal salamander was originally an amphibious fish, and when it evolved again, Chen Chu was going to throw it into the river to find food by himself, and it happened that there was a small river not far from his house. This river spreads along the edge of the city, and the entrance of the river is a few tens of miles eastward. There are plenty of fish and food in it, which is enough for the avatars behind to grow up. As for why it is not released now, it is naturally dangerous outside. With the opening of the new era, not only humans can cultivate and become stronger, but also many wild animals have mutated, and many mutant beasts have appeared. However, unlike humans who can cultivate and become stronger, those mutant beasts evolve very slowly, most of them are not very strong, and there are no hot weapons that can ignore the existence of humans. But even so, the wild is not so safe for ordinary people. Fortunately, the surrounding area of the city is said to be cleaned regularly by the government, and when news of mutant beasts appearing in villages and towns is usually received, there will be officials there to deal with them. But those deep mountains and old forests where there are few people are different. There are many powerful and evolving beasts dormant, and ordinary people are looking for death when they go there. And the most dangerous is the sea. The ocean is several times the size of land, and the deepest part is more than 10,000 meters. The number of species living in it is terrifying. With this base number, more mutant creatures will naturally appear. Especially those cetaceans, which are already huge in size, and some huge and strange creatures in the deep sea, belong to the most advanced group after the opening of the new era. Once they are naturally huge in size, once they mutate, their strength will become very terrifying. But fortunately, these creatures still like to live in the depths of the ocean. The shallow sea is still within the scope of human control. Ships can sail and salvage and catch seafood. However, some deep-sea areas where mutated giant beasts haunt have been listed as restricted areas. For the same reason, you can't raise big cats in shallow water. Most of the inland rivers are currently safe. Although some fish have also become much more ferocious, and from time to time you can see tens of hundreds of caddies of big fish turning over, but there has been no incident of attacking and cannibalizing people. At least not in the Commonwealth of Nations where he is located, and Chen Chu, the other member states, is not sure.